Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also join this debate on the 2023 budget. Before I do, I want to acknowledge uh, the government and the treasurer for tabling the 2023 budget. We acknowledge that, and I want to thank all the public servants and everyone who have contributed to the documents now before us. I want to also acknowledge the Honorable Minister for Finance and Planning for ensuring that this is the people's budget. And I think he has mentioned that there are funding for programs for every members on both sides of the House. So I just want to thank that. Work must go yet. Our people are irrespective of where we sit, they are citizens of this country and they have the same issues, they face the same issues, they have the same needs, so I want to acknowledge that and recognize that as well. Mr. Speaker, the budget is an important instrument of government to stabilize and grow the economy through its public investment programs, in creating jobs, controlling and keeping inflation low, and creating an environment that is conducive for private sector growth and investment, and in supporting the growth of business opportunities and improving the welfare of our citizens. Mr. Speaker, when the Treasurer handed down the 2023 budget on Tuesday this week, we do agree with him that our country is sailing through a gloomy international environment. And so we cannot underestimate the impact of these external developments on our domestic economy, on the lives of our people, on our business communities, and on international capital flows into and out of our country. So how are we insulating the country against these external developments? Well, for a start, Mr. Speaker, despite these gloomy external adverse developments, the government is expecting GDP, including the resource sector, to grow by 4% next year, which is actually a downward revision compared to this year's figure of 4.6%. But we understand these are difficult times. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the December inflation rates, it has been increasing from a low 2.7% in 2019 to a higher of 6.7% in 2022. And I think we all have been talking about inflationary pressures. The previous speakers have been mentioning that, and our people out there are feeling that pinch as well. So whilst we see that employment also, Mr. Speaker, continues to remain below the 2019 pre-COVID levels, according to the Bank of PNG's employment index by industries. Mr. Speaker, foreign currency shortages continue to persist. And according to a recent ADB, Asian Development Bank report, and just by looking at what the Treasurer mentioned in his economic report in September, when Parliament last sat, he mentioned to the Parliament, to this Honorable House, that our total foreign reserves was 14 billion. In handling down the budget, in his speech, Mr. Speaker, he mentioned a figure of 13 billion. So that's a shortfall of 1 billion kina in just in the month of October. So we are indeed facing a serious foreign exchange shortage. According to the Asian Development Bank, unmet orders for foreign exchange ranges between 1 to 4.5 billion kina. And it takes 3 to 12 weeks to process demands for foreign exchange in Papua New Guinea. And that Papua New Guinea, the Bank of PNG, releases per month 75 million US dollars, which is over 265 billion kina, to the commercial banks in order for them to process the demand for foreign exchange. So, Mr. Speaker, we understand that these are the consequences of adverse global events that the Treasurer has been telling us. So has the government built into the 2023 budget and beyond policies and strategies that will insulate the PNG economy against these external factors, to reduce domestic inflation, to reverse currency shortages, and to grow jobs, and to create an environment that is conducive to promoting private sector growth and investments? These are the open-ended questions I want to leave, Mr. Speaker. What I want to talk about a few important issues relating to our budget. Mr. Speaker, one thing that concerns us in the opposition relates to the budget available to National Parliament and Judiciary. And I do note from the paper by the chairman of the National Plans Estimates Committee that at least Parliament is getting some increases in funding this year. But the point here is that, Mr. Speaker, the National Parliament budget and Judiciary must be fully funded and protected. And we should not subject these to cuts like the rest of government departments. And that is by constitutional law, I think it's section 99, subsection 3. That is that we must maintain the separation of powers of the three arms of government in Papua New Guinea, and that no arm must be seen to be dominating the other. So, Mr. Speaker, the independence of the legislature and judiciary from the executive government is important, and at all times we must not allow the judiciary and legislative arm to be subjected to the executive government. We believe it is a dangerous trend for our democracy. And I do echo the speech by Honorable Joseph Yopi Yopi, Chairman of the National Plans and Estimates Committee, with him basically saying that we must protect over the course of this Parliament, if I may add, allocations and appropriations to Parliament and the judiciary. Another matter that I want to highlight, and I would appreciate if the Treasurer can at least take note of this, and maybe before we pass the budget, perhaps you can check some of those numbers again, because I'm a bit, it's probably my eyes, you know, but I just want to highlight the concern that the Honorable Treasurer actually tabled two different sets of numbers, budget numbers on Tuesday this week. And these are serious discrepancies, Mr. Speaker, which needs to be either explained or corrected before the Parliament can pass the appropriation bill. The 2023 budget appropriation bill, the grant for general public expenditure of 24 billion and 73 million kina 840,000 kina, of which, that was tabled on Tuesday by the Honorable Treasurer, inclusive of the bills, of which the capital expenditure is 9 billion 736 million kina, and operational expenditure is 14 billion 337 million kina 840,000 kina, is different to the figures quoted in the Treasurer's own budget speech. It's different to Volume 1, and it's different to the rest of the budget documents. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious glaring discrepancies in the numbers. Budget documents, Volume 1 and others, quote the figure of 24 billion 566 million 900,000 kina as total expenditure, but the appropriation bill, the grant for general public service expenditure, has only 24 billion and 73 1,840,000 kina. This is a difference of 553 million kina. The appropriation bills are less than what is in the budget, and less by 553 million kina.
That's right.
That is 60 million kina short difference in the capital budget, and 493 million kina difference in the operational budget. Mr. Speaker, the government is asking Parliament to approve and pass into law the appropriation bills for the recurrent and capital budget, which, as I've mentioned, in total is 553 million kina less than what is in the rest of the budget. Cuts will have to be made to the development budget totaling 60 million kina, and to the recurrent budget totaling 493 million kina. Which agencies will be affected? What projects in the PIP will be affected? These are significant adjustments, Mr. Speaker, and I am highlighting this because before we proceed to pass these bills, it would be important, Mr. Speaker, and respectfully, the opposition would like to request that this is looked at before Parliament makes the decision at the end of the day. Mr. Speaker, I am concerned about, I want to proceed on, and my concern relates to the health sector. I know the good treasurer has said that government has massively increased funding for the health sector, but the health sector funding has dropped by 7.1% to 2,335,000,000 kina 300,000 kina in the 2023 budget compared to 2,512,000,000 kina 700,000 in the 2022 budget funding level to the health sector. So funding to the health sector has dropped. Mr. Speaker, we went in and checked the health sector, and we note that there was lower appropriation for critical health programs in the 2022 national budget for primary health and hospital services program, which received lower funding for next year. And that is also the same for health promotions, education, human resource development, and health support services, including health infrastructure programs for 2023. In fact, Mr. Speaker, some of the hospitals around the country will have their maintenance and infrastructure programs delayed or affected as a consequence of this. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the few observations I want to make. And with all this adverse external developments and its impact on the PNG economy, the private sector and on our citizens, I can say that the 2023 budget has fallen a bit short in trying to insulate our people and our country from the external forces, adverse external conditions that Treasurer has highlighted in his speech. While we acknowledge that the housing assistance package is intended to provide relief to PNG families as real wages are affected and purchasing power of the pay packets drop, we feel that more can be done. We also feel that this is only temporary, and the challenges, and that many of our people affected are actually not on regular payroll. They are out there doing what they can to make ends meet, and we are concerned about what all of this is going to affect them. How do we address this for our citizens who are not on regular income? How do we address the cost of inflation that is now in the country? It is difficult to see how jobs will be created in the 2023 budget. And while we recognize that the external borrowing of 3.5 billion kina to fund the 2023 budget deficit will provide temporary relief to shortages in foreign exchange, we feel that more effort is needed to focus on supporting our export-oriented industries and not to kill them, like the 70% tax, 20% additional tax on the forestry sector. We also acknowledge that 50 million kina has been allocated in the 2022 budget for the Pacific Marine Industrial Zone of PMIZ Park in Madang, and spreading over the next 5 years, totaling 200 million kina. We, on our side, Mr. Speaker, we would like to see that funding for the PMIZ needs to be front-loaded in order to complete the critical infrastructure investment in that area, in the PMIZ in Madang, which has the potential to generate more than 8 billion kina annually, create more than 15,000 jobs, and contribute to the long-term growth and development and sustainability not only of Madang province and surrounding provinces, but of the PNG economy as well. Mr. Speaker, according to the government's 13-year fiscal plans, expenditure will be increasing over that period, including personal emoluments, which is 6 billion kina in 2022, 6.8 billion kina in 2023, and will climb further as part of that plan to reach around over 8 billion kina in the short to medium term. Therefore, we feel that it is prudent that we need to focus more on generating revenue internally and also creating foreign exchange through exports to meet this projected expenditure increases and the impact of that on the country's external position. We are not getting any visibility on the low-hanging fruits, Mr. Speaker, on getting Pogera mine into production and at least getting Papua and LNG, Pinyang gas fields, and Wapigo. This creates much uncertainty, Mr. Speaker, and much depends on getting these mines and gas fields into at least the construction phases, so that we can be able to have a development path into the medium to long term. And that our budget and our medium term projections, fiscal projections, can be met. So there is a lot more the opposition expects out of the 2022 national budget. And a lot of critical areas needs funding, but a lot of critical areas needing funding has been addressed by the 2022 budget. That much we can recognize, Mr. Speaker. We strongly urge, however, that the appropriation bills that I have mentioned earlier can be relooked at, as the difference of 53 million kina is too significant to ignore. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.